You're listening to Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall on CJAD 800.
That is James MENNIE over at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, budget day today. Very angry people out there. You may have heard Jim Bass, not real thrilled out in Pierrefonds, Roxborough. They got the biggest hit at 7.2%. But I want you to hear part of the press conference, I guess, this morning. Valerie Plante, and I think this is pretty self-explanatory. Check this out.
What I'm saying is that we decided to continue with what Montrealers have said was important to them. A lot of Montrealers saying, like, we cannot let people die in being hit by a car. What do we do for the most vulnerable, for pedestrians, for our elders, for our kids? Money is a lot about this, for example. Same thing for climate change. People are saying we need to adapt the territory. I agree. So we're continuing these things. We're doing it in a modest way, if I could say. I mean, if it would be in a different economic context, it would have been different, but this budget is quite, I would say, sober based on what is happening, the economic reality, but also I am convinced that no Montrealers would say, well, just give it up on, having brigadier. I'll give it up on making streets safer, give it up on public transport, I'll give it up on money for housing, where it's the number one concern of all Montrealers. I'm not minimizing that this is a raise for the taxes. We did everything we could, and I believe in order to protect the services they're attached to and they deserve to have, this is a sober.
It's a long, winding explanation, including that key word, which you threw in at the end again, a sober budget. Jim, what's your take?
You'd think she'd be a little less tone deaf after the events of the past week. The amount of time that Montreal taxpayers have been hearing about wine bills, sober is not exactly a word you want to be shooting around. But I'll tell you guys, you know what? I come on here. I have fun all the time. I'm coming on today with a little bit of trepidation because I was listening to Jim Bass, and man, is he a tough act to follow because he hit every single nail on every single head. This is a budget that perhaps, I think the one thing I can add is that the anger and the rage and the absolute, frustration that our listeners have been expressing over that very sort of privileged, entitled, detached place where our municipal politicians live, that could see them run up these wine bills and figure, well, you know what, I can get away with it. It's no big deal. We're seeing it today on to the billionth degree. We're seeing a budget that basically says, yeah. We don't really care what you have to say. Yeah, your taxes are going to go up. We have an agenda. We have things to do. And in the grand scheme of things, and I heard you mention this earlier because my eyebrows went up too, Natasha, when I saw an additional $13 million to keep Bixby open during the winter, which I'm pretty sure, even for cyclists in this town, is not a number one priority. But there you go. The other thing that I want to mention is something I mention with every municipal budget, although at this point I think now this particular expenditure has graduated to the point where folks stop thinking about the wine. Simply the debt service costs for Montreal, 16.6%. In real money, that's more than $1 billion. Yeah. You're paying more than $1 billion just to cover the vig on what we owe. And that is a reflection, certainly, of the spending, not just the Plante administration, because a lot of the city administrations, spend their brains out. But this is where we're going. And the machine is slowing down. And I've been looking high and low for somebody anywhere to say, well, this part of the budget is good, as someone who's not part of the Plante administration, and I can't find them. The Chambre de Commerce, I don't know, they choose their words very carefully, but even today's assessment of the budget is absolutely dripping with vitriol. The headline on it is, where are the savings? Indeed, this is the one question that whether you're an economist, whether you're a taxpayer, just simply a Montrealer, we can't keep living like this. We can't keep spending like this. And for Valerie Plante to cite things like pedestrian safety and school crossing guards, I think is a bit disingenuous. Okay, this is a administration that, on the one hand, yes, they've been very clear. They have a very specific agenda. They're still spending, last I heard, close to $500 million over the next 5 years on extending the bicycle path. And the real problem here, folks, is not that, the listeners I know we're going to hear from who are going to be going through the roof on this. It's the people who are not going to say a damn word, put their houses up for sale, and get the hell out and just move across the river. And more of them are doing that. And this, above and beyond everything else, is the real irony. Because on the one hand, Valerie Plante is saying, we're handcuffed. Our main source of revenue is property taxes. Well, guess what? You're convincing people who pay those property taxes perhaps to pay them elsewhere and get more bang for their buck. When the welcome tax revenues, I think, went down by 25%, and I think it was originally something like $400 million or whatever. It's down to 310 or something. That is the canary in the coal mine, folks. When you have fewer people buying, fewer new owners in Montreal, and your entire economic model is based on new owners coming in and shoring up your revenues, this is a recipe for disaster. And I think this particular budget, and guys, I got to tell you, yesterday I was only guessing because what's tomorrow's budget going to be? $7 billion? Yeah, I was wrong. It was only 6.9. But the fact is, this I think is going to be the real turning point for the Plante administration. No matter how this is phrased, no matter how many times Madame la Mairesse laughs as she's speaking, it's going to be a very, if not impossible, pill for Montreal taxpayers to swallow.
I will point out one thing, Jim, and I think it's interesting when you consider, Natasha and I mentioned this earlier on, so you consider the average single-family home now here is now valued at about $651,000, right? A year ago, 1 year ago, $592,000. So you're looking basically at about a $60,000 increase, theoretically, in the value of a property when we all know the market's not the market that it was a year or two ago. It hurts even more. No one can sell their house and get that kind of money.
Absolutely not. But on the other hand, I will bet you folding money that when we finally do the kind of, the report comes out and it's, the intra-provincial migration, you're going to see more people leaving the island of Montreal to go live someplace else because it's just not working. And this is not my imagination. I've been covering this story for the last 20 years. When I was covering City Hall, it was an issue then. It's an issue now. And we're hearing nothing from this administration other than, we're gonna stick to our guns and do what we want to do, which is fine. That is the trademark of Projet Montréal. But the fact is, I would not put money on Valérie Plante or being the mayor or Projet Montréal forming the next administration come the next general election. I think whatever goodwill you can get, people out there waving in parks and doing all the photo walks and whatever. I think finally the other shoe has dropped. Mm-hmm. It's going to cost, that shoe cost $6.9 billion. And quite frankly, Montreal taxpayers are going to wake up tomorrow morning and say, what exactly did I get?
Yeah. That's just it. What did I get for that money?
I was going to ask you, do you think she's done? And so I would say now is a very good time for any mayoral hopefuls to perhaps start launching their campaign.
Well, don't forget there's 2 years left, and the old saying in warfare and in politics, never interrupt your adversary when they're making a mistake. And right now, this is a big, fat, giant mistake that is going to be dogging this administration for months, to say the very least.
Jim, you've been covering this long enough. Has there ever been a time that you can remember when an administration, after reaction to something like this, has backed down and said, okay, well, maybe we can moderate, maybe we can make a couple of changes? Do you recall that ever happening?
Do you remember, I can't give you guys the year. It happened once when there was a budget tabled by the administration of Gerald Tremblay. It was towards the end of his tenure, and people's heads exploded. The tax increase was not what was expected. I'm sorry, I can't remember the numbers, but I remember they actually went back and retabled the budget because I think at the time Mayor Tremblay had said taxes will not go beyond X. They went like X plus 3, and they actually, they shook the Etch-a-Sketch, if you will, and made a new budget. But apart from that, I can't recall it happening.
Okay. I will point out, by the way, the one thing we haven't mentioned, and it's worth mentioning, we're talking residential. Non-residential taxes
good God,
going up 4.6%. Yeah. That is triple the rate in 2020.
Yeah. Well, what about Saint-Laurent? Let's talk about Saint-Laurent, 12.2%.
Mm-hmm. Biggest industrial land in the city.
I may be wrong here, but aren't those ensemble Montreal boroughs? I know Jim Bass's opposition, Alain D'Souza's opposition, and that's Saint Laurent. I'm sure it's just a coincidence, guys. But all that to tell you.
Oh, like the coincidence that the mayor's borough has the lowest rate increase, 2.6.
Yeah, but on the other hand, a lot of the businesses that are about to be thrown into the wood chipper with these tax increases are, in fact, located in Villeray-Plonsboro.
By the way, I will just tell you, Jim,
You're
as we're
right.
talking, someone just sent a text and saying, hey, are we missing Denny Coderre yet? Just thought I'd mention that.
Well,
No, but
I got to tell you, and I've nothing against Denny Coderre, but once again, I've said this. Well, we said it for the Quebec Liberal Party. I wish we could solve that riddle or break that Gordian knot that has us asking, why does nobody want to be mayor of Montreal?
Yeah.
Why does nobody want to be or head of the Liberal Party? So that, I think, is a fundamental issue. And until perhaps, I don't know, Ensemble Montreal or another political group figures that out, we call it Budget Day. I'm probably going to wind up being Groundhog Day, guys.
oh God.
James MENNIE over at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, thank you.
Adama.